We were told earlier that the king ordered that these Jewish youth be fed from the king's own food supply. But Daniel decided he could not accept this because it would have meant defiling himself. Why? Because the food being offered would not have been compatible with Torah law. It would not have been ritually clean. So here we see Daniel emerge as the leader of the group because he steps forward to establish that he'll not give up his holiness to comply even with the orders of the king. Now, no doubt Daniel sees this as a divine test of his faithfulness. The issue was not necessarily that the preparation of the food would not have met Levitical standards, as it was that the meat would have been unclean, due at least to a portion of it having been sacrificed to the Babylonian idols. That was common practice. Now let me pause for a brief detour to explain a common misconception about the laws of kashrut, Torah dietary rules, that frankly even much of the Jewish community is unaware. See, there are two distinct sets of Torah laws that deal with food. One set deals with what is considered permissible. The other set deals with the proper handling of the permissible foods. The first set is all about defining what is to be considered as food. And the second set then explains what can contaminate these otherwise permissible foods, thereby rendering them unclean and therefore ritually inedible. Technically, the terms clean and unclean have nothing to do with the listing of which items can be considered as food. That falls under the classification of permissible and prohibited. Rather, clean and unclean are only about the handling of food that, if done properly, can render a done improperly, it can render a perfectly permissible food as ritually unclean. So, and this is key for understanding the issue of food, especially in the New Testament. From Leviticus onward, after the food laws are given to Moses, the term food is only referring to permissible food. Because if something otherwise edible is prohibited, it's not food. Our Western minds think about categorizing food items more as edible versus inedible. That is, things that will not harm us and may supply some level of nutrition are called edible. Things that would cause us to be harmed or maybe even die if we ingest them are called inedible. Thus, while a lot of insects and worms and reptiles and some plants that taste disgusting are indeed edible by humans from a purely scientific and medical standpoint, from a biblical standpoint, they don't qualify as food. And humans, especially redeemed humans, ought not to eat them. So remembering that from Genesis to Revelation, the Bible is a Hebrew document created in the context of a Hebrew culture, then understand that unless the biblical context specifically calls for a different definition, when God, or a Hebrew, uses the term food, it's only referring to permissible food according to the list given in the law of Moses. Anything outside that list isn't food. So it's not referred to in the Bible as food. Thus, when we encounter a food issue in the Old Testament or the New Testament, Keep that in mind.